What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Progress Always, where we're here to build the fittest leaders. And I have the honor and the pleasure to sit down with my boy, Greg Pignataro, fellow strength coach and co founder of Enlightened Health. I got to hear you present at Aaron Belke's health and wellness uh, leg of Create Your Own Value. And dude, your story was incredible. The everything that you've overcome to bring you here to create this enlightened version of how you coach via the path that you've taken is nothing short of awe-inspiring. And the what I really relate to athlete is being snake bit and overcoming it and becoming a even better physical version of yourself despite the injuries that you encountered in your athletic career. And you introduced me to this really awesome, where we go, there we go, pain map, which through some of my most recent growth, I started making the somatic connection between emotional, call it distress, that is hidden in my tissues, and where symptoms of pain and lack of mobility or restriction show up. So to hear you put that so eloquently in uh, uh, strength and conditioning terms, dude, I was just in love with everything that you had to say, man. So it's an honor and pleasure. I'm looking forward to diving into all of that with you today. And I really appreciate you making the time.
Absolutely. And that was a heck of an intro. So thank you so much. And I'm really, really grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
For sure, man. Let's start at the beginning. Collegiate soccer player,
Yep.
got there, realized like, hey, man, like this is I'm happy to be here. This is awesome, and it's also going to be a lot of work. And all then the injuries started showing up. What happened?
Yeah. So well, it was actually, so kind of my dream as like a middle school kid and high school kid was to play Division 1 soccer and then hopefully
Mm-hmm.
go on to the professional level. And when I got there, imposter syndrome kicked in hard. It was like, oh man, like this is a huge step up relative to what I'm used to. And they wanted me to play a different position than I was used to as well. So there was a steep learning curve. And it was just, it was incredibly challenging to the point that mentally it was very difficult to handle, and where I kind of like really saw the mind body connection begin. Like I didn't realize it at the time, but I got the perfect example of this was maybe about halfway through the first season. This thought popped into my head that said, man, the guys who are injured are lucky because they get to miss practice. And I fully believed it. And then the very next practice, nobody's within about 5 yards of me. I make a routine 15-yard pass that I've made thousands of times throughout my career. And on the landing, tore the arch of my left foot. And so season done. And when I came back, the one thing that I could hang my hat on prior to the injury was that I was one of the fitter guys on the team. But when you don't run for 6 weeks, now that's gone too. And I remember thinking in that moment, okay, I mentally couldn't handle the challenge that was here. And so because of that, I wished to be injured, and I was. And I never want to feel that low, that helpless, that weak ever again. And so that was kind of like mentally the rock bottom moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I can say like I genuinely don't think at that I've ever quite felt that low ever again in my entire life. And I got to learn that lesson at the relatively low stakes, world of college sports, doing something that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
I think that helped with that was an initial thing. It's like, it was very painful to go through, but I'm very glad I did because it ultimately helped me build a resilience that would come in handy later down the road, in every aspect of life. So that was kind of like the first major injury with my time there. And then at the end of the following season, I fractured my back in two places during practice. I went up for a header with somebody who was way stronger and better in the air than me, and when we collided, my spine was like twisted, and I landed on my tailbone.
Oh, okay.
And just two cracks in the L5 vertebrae. And the worst part was the sports medicine staff there was normally pretty overly cautious.
Mm-hmm.
They thought that I had like strained a QL muscle. So
Yep.
they gave me a bunch of stretches and, exercises to do. And I kept playing for a month. And by the end of that, I was like, it's not, not okay to not be able to walk at the end
Right.
of practice without pain. So when I was home for winter break, I got a CT scan and they were like, yep, you have a bilateral L5 fracture. So that was about 6 months to full recovery. Like that was, yeah. But the silver lining there was that was what
Mhm.
got me interested in the body, recovery, rehab, taking good care of myself.
Yeah,
And
because at this point, you're not taking the, dare I say, stereotypical college athlete route into strength and conditioning or some kind of coaching or physical education. Where was your career trajectory, if not soccer, at this point?
so I was a psychology major, and
Okay.
I was looking to go into industrial organizational psychology to kind of like be a HR, corporate HR. That was like what I thought my path was at the time.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, things turned out a little differently.
Sure. So is this the pivot? Like, ooh, I actually want to go this way now.
So no, actually, but it did set this. It planted the seeds for that, and so
Hmm.
that kind of became something that I did on the side after graduation. While I did go the corporate route, and after 3, 4 soul sucking years of corporate drudgery, I was like, oh man, I can't do a desk job anymore. Let me
Hmm.
do strength and conditioning full time.
Okay. Yeah. Now, at what point did you go after this Nordic curl?
Okay, so for context on this, in 2022, I set the Guinness World Record for most Nordic hamstring curls in 1 minute, and it had when I kind of came across this exercise, it like blew up on social media a bit around like 2020, 2021. People saw Tyreek Hill's video of him doing 10 reps, and were like, oh my god! And it really captured my imagination because buried deep in my memory there was during my very first strength and conditioning session with this college soccer program, they wanted us to do Nordic curls.
Hmm.
And out of 30 guys, one person could do 1 rep. And that was it.
Yep.
And so I think looking back on a time that I had, even though I learned a lot, kind of regarded as a failure, like I didn't make it at the Division 1 level. So I left after 2 years. Uh,
Hmm.
this was kind of like a chance to be like, you know what, I can be better at this one thing than everybody was then. So I kind of just like it started as, I wished I'd been able to do these back then. I can't do them. Let's try to do this. See if in my early 30s I can get to at least 1 rep. And the training for them was really rewarding and fun. It took me about 4 months to go from 0 reps to 1. But then by the end of the year, I could do close to 20 reps. And that was around the time then I had seen the Tyreek Hill video of him doing 10. And the Men's Health did an article on the UFC fighter George St. Pierre for doing
Hmm.
2 reps. And I was like, wait a minute, like, is there like, what's the world record for this? Let me look into it. And from everything I could find, the unofficial world record was 18 reps. And so then I worked with Guinness for about a year to make this like an officially codified category.
What all goes into that? I don't know this part of the story. So yeah,
Yeah,
what does it take to even get in the book in the first place? Or
yes,
make a sanctioned attempt. How about that?
yeah. So they are they're very strict when it comes to measurability for anything that is like a body weight exercise,
Hmm.
and this makes sense because I think like most of us guys in the strength and conditioning world can relate to like, let's see who can do the most push-ups, and it's like,
No
bro, that
rep,
one
no
didn't count.
rep,
You
no
can touch
rep, no
the
rep.
chest, or you can go all the way up. So, so they're very strict about that, and
Hmm.
all their categories are time limits because to like go back to the push-up thing. It's like, okay, if you're in a push-up competition, can you rest at the top? Can you kind of go into a pike position, or do you just have to keep cranking them out the entire time? So it's like none of that. We have very strict rep standards, and your time categories, if you want to set a body weight exercise record, are most in 1 minute, most in 3 minutes, most in 1 hour, and most in 1 day. So I decided to go for the 1 minute category. And so you have two options. You can fly somebody out from Guinness to like officially sanction your attempt, for which they want the tidy little sum of $12,000, non-refundable if you don't beat it. So I was like, I'm going to go for the backup option. Like my strength and conditioning business was doing well at that time, but not that well.
Right.
And so they have a lot of guidelines. You need two people who are experts in the field of the record you want to attempt. So in this case, it meant people with like a CSCS or NASM certification or something like that.
Right.
Two people who have timekeeping experience, whatever that means. But and then you had to film from multiple angles in full speed and slow motion. You had to have rep counters visible within the video. You had to You had to have like the time officially within the video, like the count clock. They wanted you to try to get local media attention if you could. You had to take pictures of the whole setup process, write a cover letter. Like it was very comprehensive.
Yeah.
But then, so I brought a bunch of people together. Probably had like maybe 40 people watching. We had a local CBS news station there, and it was a really fun experience.
Wow. And you hit how many?
24 reps in
24 in 60 seconds.
Yes. And it's interesting. Like there's room for the record to be broken because I did 20 of those 24 reps in the first 40 seconds. Like I was doing one every 2 seconds, like clockwork.
Okay.
And then I just fell off a cliff. Energy shifted. Like, all right. And then in the video, you can see I get about halfway up on the 25th rep and then just boom.
No more hamstrings.
Nah, they're done.
Man, it's funny. You'll understand this. I had a buddy of mine I played with back in the day, and when he finished his senior season, he was going to go do his pro day at Florida State.
Okay.
And in between, he started working with a guy from West Side.
Okay. Nice.
And Louis Simmons, God rest his soul, was still around back then. And he flies out to Ohio, does an assessment, and Louis gives his coach guidance. He's like, if you want this guy to be, he was a fullback,
okay,
which at the Air Force Academy is a NFL running back, right? And he's like, if you want this guy to run faster, get him to jump higher. Okay. So I forget what the duration was, but he spent like no time actually running and spent all of his time on his vertical.
Cool.
And he went from a mid 4.5 to a 4.4 at 240.
Wow.
Good stuff. But it's all just fast twist activation, right?
For sure.
And I remember when my brother was getting ready, he was a 5A All-State defensive player out of Texas.
Okay.
And somewhere in his high school career, he discovered the reverse hyper.
Okay.
And just creating that connection between hamstring development and straight line speed.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dialogue that you and I would have like to the depth of the earth.
For sure.
But what I love about these conversations is I get to be stupid on behalf of the audience. So in Greg's words, in your professional experience, what is the mechanism there? Because I would assume that over the course of your Nordic curl development, some beneficial physiological changes also occurred.
Absolutely. So I think the important thing to remember about the Nordics is that they are one of the only exercises that challenges the hamstrings in a lengthened position through the mechanism of like knee motion. So when we look at like their counterpart that puts the hamstrings in the most shortened position is obviously your classic, hamstring curl machine, but that is challenging the hamstrings in its most contracted position. And
Mm-hmm.
then the typical movements we have for strengthening hamstrings, like RDLs or deadlifts, those are a hip movement. They're not, the motion isn't from the knee. So the Nordics, they don't really have a direct replacement. And in most athletes, other than elite sprinters, there's a bit of a deficit there about how much tension their hamstrings can handle at length. And so the Nordics are fantastic for developing that. And you need the ability to handle those high amounts of force when you are sprinting or
Mm-hmm.
jumping. For me personally, the Nordics didn't have a huge translation to my vertical jumping ability, but they definitely increased my overall top speed. Like I was hitting I think I was hitting about 20 miles an hour at 34 years old. So, which was way faster than I was. That's not going to set any records, but it was like way faster than I was as a mediocre Division I college soccer player. So it was
Yeah.
really cool. And that was just with like no expert coaching other than anybody from myself. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and they also are fantastic for preventing injury. Back to the old
Yeah.
cliche of the best ability is availability. And you
Yeah.
look at it in pretty much any field sport right now, there's an epidemic of hamstring injuries. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it is overuse. But the way I see it is you have like outside of NFL skill position players, like if you look at your average soccer player, your average lacrosse player, even at a high like college level or low level professional, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them could do anywhere between like 0 to 3 Nordic curls. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of I would treat that as pressing an issue as like a football player who couldn't do a pull up. I'd be like, dude, this is a unacceptable level of risk for what your sport demands. We need to address this.
Yeah. Well, and it also speaks to where the tension is,
Yeah.
right? Because most hamstring issues uh, are at the or through the tendon, where the muscle attaches to the bone, right?
Yep.
And when you talk about conventional methods of developing hamstrings, right, where the glute and the hamstring come together up high, that's very much intact when you're talking about any kind of barbell pulling
For sure.
movement,
Yeah.
RDL, deadlift, etc. But what's not, where the deficit is, if you're over reliant on the on that, is at the knee, behind the knee,
Exactly.
right? And so when you're carrying over in your sprint, that's where the maximum amount of tension is. To your point, the Nordic curl is the only one that develops strength at that point at maximal length and tension, which is also in a sprint where that area experiences the most tension
Exactly.
and force production.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I do love the correlation though, like in terms of like driving the point home, like why the fuck would I want to work on this?
Yeah.
Right. Of like this for your lower body, this is the equivalent. And I would say like an equal level of difficulty for somebody who's starting from zero. This is the equivalent of the inability to do a pull up.
Yes. And it's a really like I think it's a really humbling thing even when you do them at first, because like for somebody in the strength and conditioning world, like I was thinking back, like the last time I can remember not being able to do a pull-up was fourth grade presidential physical fitness. The only thing I couldn't do.
Bring
And,
it back, baby. Bring it back.
and so it's very humbling because like when you first try to do a Nordic curl, you first try to do a pull-up and you can't do one, it feels impossible. You're like, this is never gonna happen. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like, and I think, that's part of why I love strength training is you can, in the course of a few months, take something from what feels like impossible to it feels easy. But it's
Yeah.
a really good thing for coaches to remember, like put ourselves in our clients' shoes. It's like, oh, actually, no, this is what it feels like when you can't even do one of this exercise. And it's a very good place to go back to mentally sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So And that's why I've seen like some resistance to the Nordic curl as like an important part of training programs. People are like, oh, it's a party trick, or it's like it's not actually that useful. And I think some of that comes from the resistance of coaches who don't like the feeling of like, oh, this is an important thing that I actually can't do, so I need to say it's not important. Um,
Or, dude, you want to talk about the ego check of a coach? Like, what if I can't get my athlete to do it?
mm,
Oh shit. Am I that good a coach?
that's
Like,
a
I could totally see that.
yeah,
Like these athletes, my clients are relying on me, but if I make this a metric in terms of how we judge or prepare them or judge their performance, am I creating an impossible task?
yeah,
Oh, right. And dude, that's. But I think it's with the right frame, it's a worthwhile endeavor. Like even if you don't get an athlete to it, right? Like you're an offensive lineman or whatever. Somebody who already presents those kinds of issues in terms of strength to body mass ratios.
mm-hmm.
But the fact that you're challenging the mechanism in the first place, like one of the things that we focus on at Next Level is like reframing what progress actually looks like.
Yeah,
Is the metric of success actually accomplishing the movement, or are you less susceptible to injury?
totally.
Or do you have more strength across that joint? It's there are way more other metrics that come along with and before the actual result, that if we focus there, we're always winning.
100%. And this is where like again the humility in training comes, because like when I started with the Nordic curls, I was using probably 90 pounds of banded assistance, so that I could get to somewhere approaching the full range of motion.
Mm-hmm.
Because what most people experience is they get about a third to halfway down and then just free fall, because they've tripped that mechanism where the brain shuts off those muscles from firing, because it's like, no, this isn't safe. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you try to just power your way through that, one, you can't, and the range of motion that you start with is going to be very small, as to be almost, I don't want to say
Mm-hmm.
useless, but probably not worth it. And it's a
Yeah.
very long, slow process to increase that. Whereas if you use enough bands, you can get almost anybody to be able to do a full range of motion. And now you are developing strength and the neurological sense of safety in those end ranges of motion. And now
Yeah.
you have a platform for building strength.
So can we expand on that? Because I think this is a great segue into somatics,
Sure.
right? Convincing the body that this is a safe movement, a safe range, a safe position, etc. Yes, there's the like I can talk myself into performing, but at the same time, there's a neuromuscular, a very real neuromuscular connection that needs to be made as to what fires and when and for how long, that allows you to perform these movements, or any movement for
Yeah,
that matter. I mean, just take it like watching somebody clean for the first time. Oh my god, it's like so out of sequence,
for sure.
right? Or somebody who can't quite, if you ask them to just hold a beam and sit in a squat, they break parallel almost every time. But you ask them to do it consciously, unassisted or unsupported, and they stay above parallel. They're restricted above parallel.
Yep.
Well, what's happening there?
Yeah. And to answer that question, I think a really important thing to keep in mind is that like our brains, our nervous system are wired to be overly cautious because they're trying to keep us alive. And the example on this that I love is if you come into your house late at night and then you see like a shadow and you scare yourself, your heart rate comes up and you're like, okay, it was just my shadow. It wasn't actually an intruder. Your body can recover from that infinite times.
Yep.
If you were wrong in the opposite direction, you thought it was just a shadow and it's actually something dangerous, you might only get one mistake. So our brains evolved the ability to be like, all right, let's be overly cautious. Let's keep the body safe
Mm-hmm.
so that it can reproduce. So when we talk about getting into certain positions, you know, that movement in any movement, when we switch from concentric to eccentric, or like lowering to rising, that moment where you switch is the most taxing on the body, requires the most force, is where we're most prone to injury. And the body's so innately intelligent, it knows this, and it's like, well, I don't think you can get out of a deep splits position without hurting yourself, so I'm not even going to let you get into it. um, Now, there are ways to like gradually show the body that by slowly increasing range of motion and producing force towards the end range of our motion, our end ranges, once we're well warmed up. If you do that consistently enough over time, then the body will learn to trust these positions. And then you've kind of I almost think of it as like you've unlocked them in a video game. Like the body just trusts you to get into that. Kind of like the book by Kelly Starrett, Becoming a Supple Leopard, where he asks, like, why does a cheetah not have to stretch before it sprints 70 miles an hour? And why doesn't it tear its hamstring? And yes, there's a lot of factors, but primarily its nervous system knows that that's a safe movement. So go ahead.
Yeah. To that end, is this a perishable skill that we're talking about? Like, is it once you've unlocked it, it stays unlocked and it's there for you to use in perpetuity? Or is it something that needs to be, at the very least, revisited at a regular interval so that you don't lose it again?
Totally. So I think any skill requires maintenance, but maintenance requires so much less time and effort than we think. And it requires far less than building the skill in the first place. So any skill like that, yes, it is going to require maintenance to keep like showing, especially if it's something you don't do very often, or if it is the end of an extreme range, showing like, hey, yeah, this is still safe.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. But
my buddy Adam Nile introduced me to this concept called the capability test. I didn't have a label for it, but I love it. So I didn't bother replacing it with any next level speak. So adding this Nordic curl concept to your capability test, like if I'm judging my own fitness, right? And this list can be 3 things long or a million, as long as you want. My ability to do a pull-up, run a sub 8 mile, the list goes on, maintain 200 pounds, 12% body fat on the high, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we can add this to the list, so no matter what we're doing, what season of life that we're in, as long as I can do that, we're in a good spot, and it keeps me accountable to its maintenance.
I love that.
Cool. Hell yeah, man. Awesome. So, like, all of that being said, you're creating trust. I'm gonna call the Nordic curl your body's trust fall.
Oh, dude, I love that.
Because as you were describing it, that's all I kept thinking about is like you're all by yourself, trust falling yourself. As you're creating that trust with your body, right? Where does this show up?
Okay, so
this is the thing that intrigues me the most, because it has so much to do with what's going on between the ears.
Absolutely. So the emotional pain map. Would it be helpful if I gave a little bit of background as to like how I found the thing?
Please, because not everybody's going to watch this, and nobody saw what I just put up in front of the camera.
So for those who are listening, he put up a map of the human body that has circles and numbers in different areas that have been shown to be correlated with different emotional and trauma pain patterns. So this is kind of like a modern take on traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and ancient Indian Ayurvedic medicine, where they were in the East much more attuned to how emotions affect the physical body. So a little bit of a background story on how I got into this. So as I was training for the Nordic Curl World Record, I started experiencing some medial knee pain, just kind of some overuse. And a good friend of mine, Dr. Wesley Kress, who runs the Breakthrough Performance and Rehab Center in Scottsdale, used this really cool machine by the company NewFit that, think like a TENS unit on steroids, way more effective, way more powerful, uses a different kind of electric current, and basically floods the system with enough sensory information that the brain has to recalculate. Is this movement that I perceive as dangerous actually dangerous? And if it's not dangerous, I don't send the pain signal. So after 2 sessions with him um, and a slight tweak to my form, my knee pain was gone and didn't come back. So I was like, okay, I want one of these things. So I bought one and started incorporating it into my business, mostly for people who were like seeking pain relief. And what I started seeing was that some people would have emotional releases while on the machine. And I was like, man, what's going on here? This is really
Did that happen? Did that happen for you?
It didn't happen for me,
Okay.
but it happened by the fourth or fifth time it happened with a client. I was like, okay, this is enough of a pattern that I'm intrigued here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my clients gave me a really fascinating book called Healing Back Pain, The Mind-Body Connection. And this is written by an old school physician. I think he went to med school in the 1950s, traditionally Western trained, but he eventually saw such a pattern with his back pain patients in terms of their personalities and life circumstances that he almost essentially started offering regular therapy instead of physical interventions to get rid of their back pain. And so what he found was disproportionately these people were, overstressed at work, people pleasers, and had lots of repressed anger.
When you say regular therapy, you mean psychotherapy,
Yeah,
counseling, sit on the couch, talk about your feelings?
it was basically like he wanted them to see and acknowledge how their repressed emotions were having an effect on their physical body.
Okay.
For the
Yep.
people who acknowledged this and then took steps to address the situations in their lives that were leading to stress and repressed anger, they would see an immediate and massive improvement in their back pain.
Mm-hmm.
And just and also as a quick aside here, like modern science is catching up with this as well. There was an article in a 2022 article in the British Medical Journal, BMJ, where they are now recommending against physicians getting MRIs and X-rays for people with back pain unless the physician suspects cancer, infection, severe neurological dysfunction, or a fracture.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it makes people think that they are worse than they actually are and can be an impediment to healing from pain. And that
Yep.
things like a bulging disc or disc degeneration are just normal parts of aging. They don't have to be correlated with pain. And in fact, it's something like 80% of people without back pain over the age of 60 have a bulging disc or a disc degeneration that would show up on MRI, but they don't have pain.
I'm not 60 yet, but I've got 3. So
And if you looked at my back, like one of the sides still has like the appearance of a slight fracture just because there's not enough blood flow to tissue like that. And it doesn't
Mhm.
it doesn't fully heal from like a structural standpoint. But
Right.
from a pain standpoint, it's completely fine. I can sprint,
Mhm.
I can play soccer, I can rock climb, I can deadlift, I can do all this stuff completely
Right.
pain free. So with the emotional pain map, when I came across this, it's a really helpful tool, I find, for when people are struggling with chronic pain that seems to have resisted every normal intervention. Like they've tried physical therapy, maybe even surgery, they've done all the movements, they've taken the pain pills, and the back pain still has not gone away. Now, this could be your body sending you a message saying like there are some emotions here, there are some situations in your life that you are not addressing that are leading to these emotions that you need to address.
Mhm.
There's an interesting evolutionary parallel for this because it kind of speaks to why, like, I'll back up for a second. I think for a lot of us, physical pain is almost preferable to feel than emotional pain. Like most of us.
Oh, dude. I will co-sign on that wholeheartedly. Like I kind of know what to do with this pain in my elbow,
Hmm.
but unpacking the emotional trigger that may be responsible for it, I I'm not so sure I want to address that monster in the cave.
Totally. And so our bodies kind of like they can use physical pain to mask emotional pain and saying like, hey, right now, okay, maybe this emotional pain is it's not the time to address this, but I also
Mhm.
can't let you forget about it. So there's going to be a physical reminder. And I know this might sound a little bit out there to some people, but again, if we go to the like evolutionary roots
Mhm.
of this, most of us would rather do anything than experience deep shame, right? Like shame
Right.
is about the
Mm-hmm.
most uncomfortable physical, like human experience we can have.
Sure.
And the reason for this is if you look back to our hunter gatherer days when we were in small tribes, if you were experiencing shame, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably because you did something so dangerous or so selfish or so detrimental to the tribe
Right.
that you risked getting kicked out of it.
Correct.
And
Mm-hmm.
back in those days, if you were kicked out of the tribe, you were probably dead. So
Mm-hmm.
if shame makes us want to curl up and feel like we're going to curl up into a little ball and die,
Yeah.
well, it's because at a certain point in human history, that
Yeah.
emotion meant you were risking death.
So
So,
for the
yeah,
record, neither of us are psychologists.
sure. Psych major,
Or,
but not
or,
psychologist.
dude, I was 2 classes away from a minor in psych,
Nice.
or uh, psychological professionals. I want to put that out there.
That is
Uh,
true.
however, the question I'm interrupting intentionally to ask is it that we've forgotten what that significantly emotional experience was, or it's deep rooted in our subconscious now, that the only thing that we're conscious of is the physical pain? Is it a forgotten memory? Is it, well, like, what is in your experience? And I'll talk about some of the things that we do at next level, but I want to hear your frame on this first. Like, why do we fixate on the physical rather than at the very least explore the emotionality of pain and discomfort?
That's an amazing question. And so to explore it, I want to go back to the connection between repressed anger and back pain.
Okay.
So let's say you are experiencing anger because your boss is a total asshole and you're being overworked and underpaid, and they're like calling you at 8 p.m. at night and want you to have this thing by the next day. Addressing this situation might require like having a really confrontational conversation with your boss. It might require finding a new job.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those things might sound incredibly daunting, or maybe like, yeah, I have a family to support. I can't risk looking for a new job right now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I legitimately, it would be detrimental for my life in order to address the situation and where the anger is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Then the body's like, okay, well, again, we can put this to aside, but we can't let you forget about it. So the pain is going to be there to let you know that something is wrong for you to address when you are ready. And now we can create the stories like maybe having the confrontational conversation with your boss. Now that you've set boundaries, they will respect you more and like your life situation will improve. Or maybe you'll leave the job and find an even better one. But again, it basically comes back to, because the emotional pain is harder to face, we want to bury it and forget about it. And so we do that only we can only do that for so long until the body starts to speak up and say, hey, you can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm. What we noticed when we started front loading our alignment assessment, which addresses, how you show up when your needs and expectations are being met and how you show up when they're not. And we're able to put together what we call an immediate action plan to most consistently with the variables that you actually control, which is a very short list, get those expectations met. We noticed that where once upon a time someone might struggle with adherence or consistency with a training protocol or a nutrition plan or what have you, once we started addressing that stuff, almost like if so facto, the rest of it started to fall in line because you had room, like in the shit that you're worried about or that preoccupies your brain space becomes so much less. You have room to actually put together and implement replace these habits and behaviors that support a better version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. So I love the fact that you came to it via uh, your avenue, and it was also a discover and practice for us as well. It's like, oh my gosh, this is very real,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, like, and what shows up in our conversation is like we start to expose these blind spots and widen the aperture. It's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that bothered me as much as it does.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, what's very common for us is this subconscious expectation that Greg can read Michael's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't, and we fall short of the expectations that I had that you didn't know about, all of a sudden my universe goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yep.
Right? It's like, oh, but if I just said the thing out loud, life would be better for everybody.
For sure. And that's a topic I'm really passionate about because it was something that kind of occurred to me maybe a year or so ago, and that like a lot of us were kind of raised as kids to think our needs didn't matter as much, or like it was even selfish to have needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually far scarier to speak your needs aloud and risk having the person say, no, I can't do that, or I can't meet that, than it is to keep quiet and hope they do. It's far less exposing. But when
Mm-hmm.
you get over that fear, then then both parties in this, whatever this relationship or interaction are, can be happier and better off.
Totally. Oh man, I think part of where that comes from is in our upbringing, and it's all with the best of intentions, right? The powers that be, whether it's teachers in school or coaches or parents, they want to keep us safe,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to that end, especially as young boys, it's almost like we have this assignment from the universe. Like, let's see how many ways I can attempt to fuck myself up today, and you
Yeah.
start playing with scissors and sticking pennies in light sockets and all those. You do that enough, and it's just like the powers of being like, I don't even want to bother. Just sit still. Don't stop. Right. And all of a sudden,
Yep.
that thing that you would just naturally like go explore, you don't.
Yeah.
And you repress. And, that's a very elementary example of suppressing desire, but I think it gets the point across. You get in the habit of suppressing these desires or speaking out loud or saying what you actually want.
Yep.
And replace it with a pattern of just going along to get along, or life is way less chaotic if I just let it ride,
Yep.
Whatever. Like that also serves a purpose.
Yep.
To a point until it doesn't.
Correct.
And then that's when it's when we continue to operate with these, what we like to call outdated programs and agreements, that we start to meet a lot of unnecessary friction.
Totally. And I'm really glad you brought up that example, because that also is in a similar way where we learn to mistrust and repress emotions. Because
Tell me more.
well, how many of us boys, by the time we were 5 years old, learned that crying was not okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something, or that like if you were throwing a temper tantrum as a child, maybe anger wasn't okay, or maybe fear wasn't okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of these emotions, we kind of learned to mistrust them as not safe, or we were taught and reinforced, like you can't display this thing.
Right.
So we get practice from a very early age
Mm-hmm.
of repressing the experience of this emotion. But all emotions, like they have to be felt eventually. And we could, as a quick aside on that, if I can share this story.
Please.
So I did a retreat recently where the facilitator did a masterful job of pulling out a whole lot of old anger, like
Mm-hmm.
childhood anger stuff. And I had convinced myself that, because of like all the meditation I've done, all this self exploration work, because my threshold for anger is now much higher, that meant I could skip over the old anger. It's like, nope, the bill comes due eventually.
Oh man, that is such a powerful line, that all emotions will not need to be, but will be felt
Yeah,
eventually. That is so powerful, so eloquent, so to the point. I'm curious. because I just had a conversation on a previous podcast with Army retired Major Mike Christensen around. This is where a lot of post-traumatic stress is born, especially for those that have been in a combat environment, a kinetic combat environment where, the 5-second firefight has passed. You're in that liminal space, and then the bullets start flying again. Well, you're not gifted the time. That's not a luxury that you have to feel the emotionality of that previous experience, whatever the outcome was, before you have to handle this one.
Yes.
And it's lather, rinse, repeat for however long you're deployed.
Yeah. And a really interesting thing to touch on in that is like, it's a good thing that you can't feel those emotions in that moment.
Yes, there is utility in that environment.
Like, it would be, if you could truly fully feel the fear associated with a firefight like that, you'd probably be killed. Like, you wouldn't be able to function. So it's very good that our bodies have this ability to save the emotion for later.
Yes.
We run into the problem when we think, oh, it's saving it for never. I don't have to feel it.
Very well put. And yes, that is the point that I was alluding to. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Making sure that we're not like trying to convince the audience that any of this is bad, but these are all very contextual mechanisms that on either end of the spectrum, if we allow them to stay there forever as like a catch-all for everything else, not that firefight, we're in deep shit.
Mm-hmm.
And setting ourselves up for a lot of setting ourselves up for the inability to live life to the fullest.
Absolutely. Really well said.
Yeah. So now that we're here, what are the things that are in your practice? So we're not prescribing here.
Yeah.
What are the things that are in your practice that once you realize that, like, because correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of this manifests chronically. We're not talking about anything that is, it's far more likely to be a chronic issue than it is an acute issue. Yes or no?
I would say yes. Like, not that this doesn't apply to acute. It's a little more nebulous, but I like to treat it more, especially when it comes to the chronic side.
Perfect. So you recognize that this pain or this restriction has you've done all the protocols, you've done all the rehab, you've done all the things, and it still persists.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, like, I guess the only thing left is to address this emotional stuff. I have my pain map, right? What are the things that are in your practice to help you move through it? Like, let's talk about the somatics.
Yeah. So with what specifically I do with clients, I use that same new fit device that I described earlier, where we like apply the electricity and the sensation to give somebody's attention a focus point to actually go to this place that they have been avoiding putting their attention. So that I have as a very powerful anchoring practice, because it's like, no, actually put all your emotion on the body, or sorry, put all your attention on the area of the body where this emotion may be living, and fully feel the sensations associated with it. Because think about it, even like if if your shoulder hurts, you feel it, but you complain about it, or at least I would, and try to get rid of it rather than like actually fully feeling what's going on there. So that's part of it, is really anchoring your attention to where the pain is. When you have something like the emotional pain map or other resources, because I have some books that go into greater detail there as well, that describe what the situation or trauma or emotion is, being brutally honest with yourself and saying, is this true? Like, I had one of the easiest cases on this. I worked with a woman who had a spot like kind of in the teres minor area, like part of the rotator cuff, some pain. And it was associated with like picking partners who can't nurture emotionally. and she was in the middle of a brutal divorce, and her perception was that her husband or her ex-husband was not pulling his weight when it came to raising their 4-year-old child, and she was being disproportionately being disproportionately burdened with that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one of two ways, is to lean in and be like, you know what, I'm really fucking angry about this. Like, I'm really upset. Or like, well, no, he's doing the best he can. Like, he's really stressed with work. That way is going to keep, you know what I mean? Like, that's going to
Mm-hmm.
keep you locked in the exact same situation.
Sure.
So if you're actually acknowledging what you are feeling and then allowing yourself to fully feel it, then addressing the situation, that's 90% of the work.
Right.
The challenge comes in is because the brain is like, I don't want to feel it. Anything but that. Like, please let there be something else. Let me explore all these other options before I allow myself to fully feel the emotion. But that is the root of it. And, meditation can be very handy with that. Regular therapy can be very handy with that. There are many avenues, but it comes down to being brutally honest about the emotions and allowing yourself to fully feel them.
Do you feel like journaling?
Big time.
Yeah. Okay.
If that's a practice that resonates with people, it's an amazing one for it, because sometimes it's easier to be honest with yourself on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a really powerful practice with this, like, because about a year and a half ago, I switched to keeping my journals online, and I went to them through ChatGPT actually, and was saying, what patterns am I missing? What are my blind spots? What can I not see? What is repeatedly coming up? And it was like this and this and this. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. So,
one of the things we've been playing with this as we've launched the Alignment Village, and one of the things that we've built was a GPT that allows you to leverage your alignment assessment and tease out some of those things.
Really cool.
Yeah, super cool, super helpful. I've done a ton of these debriefs over the years, and taking our first handful of folks through it and leveraging it in the coaching experience. Oh my God. Like, I can't believe how empowering it's been for folks to then take ownership of the process.
Yeah.
Because that's a big one. What you're referencing in terms of being brutally honest with yourself, when it's all said and done, once the trauma, whatever it is long gone and in the rear view mirror, at some point you've got to take ownership of the path forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, at least in my coaching experience, that has been the highest point of leverage. If you can get a client there, like, okay, there's only so much back here that we can continue to mess with.
Yeah.
And yes, that's important. And yes, that work needs to be done. And also, if we can fixate on what we're going to shift, replace, reintegrate as this ongoing practice of awareness
Mm-hmm.
becomes more lockstep and routine for us. Like, am I acting in alignment with that higher, better version of myself?
Totally.
Right. And that's the question that we get to ask in real time. Is this next decision, is this next act in alignment with with a future version of myself?
Right. Or is it in alignment with an old program that I no longer want to be operating based on?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love that you used that phrase earlier, because we inherit all of these programs, right? From, like you said, from our parents, teachers, coaches, society at large,
Mm-hmm.
that are useful for a while, but
Yep.
so many of them outlive their usefulness. And then
Yes.
it's not our fault that we're still operating based on old programming, but it is our responsibility to change it once we see that, okay, I don't want to be operating on this program.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also why I loved, so I think as part of your alignment assessment, you talked about how there's a personality test that sees what are you like when you're calm, what are you like when you're stressed, right?
So the only thing I can observe in Greg
Mm-hmm.
is how you show up when your needs are being met or they're not. Your
Well,
usual behavior when they are, your stress behavior when they're not.
yeah,
The needs and expectations in between, that tip the scales one way or the other, only you know. And in so many cases, you may not even be aware of. So
yeah,
how the like how are you able to curate your environment, your circles of influence, all the things to support your highest and best self
yeah,
if you don't know those expectations exist, or, and more importantly, you don't have the ability to communicate them articulately and effectively?
absolutely.
Like I don't like there's and I know that you know this, like there's so many of our clients that are just waiting for permission
Mm,
to step into that higher, better version of themselves. And so much of that permission just lies in communicating those expectations out loud.
for
Right. What one of the things, like when it comes to behavior change, that we are massive advocates for in terms of self advocacy is being responsible for taking responsibility for your circles of influence and your environment. And if they don't support that higher, better version of you, it's your responsibility to then uh, communicate those needs and expectations. But what's not your responsibility is the other's reaction to
yeah,
that communication.
totally.
Um, um, uh, Zach, uh, who's I think two episodes before this,
Hmm.
uh, put it so beautifully. He's like, however they respond is okay.
Yeah, he's right.
And dude, woo! I was like, oh damn! Like even I had to take a step back and like explore that for a second and come to terms with it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
because it is okay, because this is what Michael needs to
Hmm.
show up, is a higher, better version of Michael.
For sure. And then trusting yourself to be able to handle and navigate whatever their reaction is.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and the more you have the self awareness of all that stuff you said, like how do you respond when your needs aren't being met,
Mm-hmm.
then you can be better prepared.
Yeah,
Um,
and more accepting.
yes.
Right. That's the big one, because I feel like what if you get to the point where you're able to pull that trigger and communicate those needs and expectations, it the next hurdle that needs to be overcome is wanting to justify or fight for understanding, especially when it doesn't go your way.
Yeah.
Like, man, I'm going to tell Greg exactly what I need, and I really want us to be friends at the end of this. But in the event that you can't accommodate those needs and expectations, like, how does this go?
Yeah.
Like, why can't you? Why won't you change? Like, oh, and then you revert to what's familiar, what's comfortable,
Yeah.
right? You know what? Oh, I love you so much. We'll just go back to the way it was,
Mm,
and you compromise yourself.
self sabotage there.
Oof. So when that happens, because like I would assume that what's the device called?
It's called the Newbie Neurobioelectric by the company NewFit.
When somebody has this newbie experience,
Hmm.
right? It's like any other personal growth and development retreat, protocol, awareness, whatever. It's not set in stone after one experience,
Yeah.
right? There are steps,
Yes.
right, that ingrain the new in us,
Hmm.
right? And it takes practice to create that,
Definitely.
right? So the how do you help your clients uh, accept rather than understand? The understanding comes later. I believe that acceptance is far more easier to come to than understanding in a lot of cases. How do you, what is the language that you use with your clients to help them become more accepting of the practice of becoming better, as opposed to beating themselves up because it didn't work immediately, or like, oh, I'm not fixed. Like all these problems are still here. Like, yeah, dude, the universe still exists out here, and there are other people who want what they want as well. You still have to navigate that shit after this treatment.
Absolutely. And it's like, it's a reminder that progress is not linear, and cycles of expanding and then contracting are completely normal.
Mm-hmm.
So to have patience and grace with yourself as you are trying to change, but to give you something concrete to do as you're navigating this, is use awareness plus journaling to see how long after the fact you can notice that the old program was running. And so maybe you like were really stressed and you shouted at somebody, and you noticed like 3 days later, you're like, oh yeah, that was not cool. Why'd I do that? But over time, maybe then now that shortens to a day later. And then you noticed an hour later. And then you noticed 5 minutes later. And then there comes this inflection point where you like see the old program like wanting to run as it's happening, and you catch it and you're like, nope, not today. And once you have caught that, then that old program is on its way out. Like it's still going to have momentum. It's still going to be trying to run in the background for a while, but you have reached the point where like the new one is trying to insert itself as well. And so that can kind of like give you something to focus on as you're trying to like navigate these changes, that can then feel like progress, and it can even feel like fun when it happens. Be like, nope, nice try. I saw this.
Yes. That's awesome. That's, dude, when I thoroughly enjoy it, man, when we get that feedback as coaches and facilitators that like, dude, I caught it today. Like,
Oh yeah.
that thing, that trigger showed up and I did something different.
Yeah.
You know, and it still it may have been to that grace part that you talked about. It still may have been a less than desirable outcome. But the fact that it was different at all compared to whatever the old pattern was,
Yeah.
that's a massive win and a huge step towards progress.
And I think that's one of our most important roles as coaches, is reinforcing the no small wins. You know, when a client has like something like that, to be like, no, dude, that was huge. Like, look what you just did. Like, look how big a deal that is that you were able to change it like this. And that reinforces, because we're so we're so good at downplaying our own, progress or achievements. Be like, oh, it wasn't a big deal, or I'm not completely fixed, or what have you. So yeah, that's where we come in.
100%. Hey, dude, I'm so happy that you're on our team. I'm proud to call you friend, and I'm really looking forward to integrating and collaborating with you and Enlightened Health. Where can our audience find you, support you, learn from you, experience that newbie?
Absolutely. So you can find us at www.enlightened.health. And on there, we have a Calendly link to book an initial exploratory session where we'll do some fun body scanning procedures with the newbie, show you where you might be holding some of this tension and trauma, do some deep relaxation meditation work while on the device as well, to help the nervous system feel safe enough to process this stuff and explore all the cool things that you want to explore. So that is www.enlightened.health, not enlightenedhealth.com, enlightened.health.
I love it, man. I love it. Greg, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm really grateful to share time, space, and energy with you, man. For everybody there listening, remember, it starts with integrity, courage, and ownership. And if you're looking to become the better, fitter leader that we know that you are, join us in the Alignment Village, where we can coach, nurture, and support the higher, better version of yourself. That is alive and well at thenextlevelvillage.com. The links are all in the show notes. And until next time, guys, progress always.